some more mailbag. Remember, these are questions you've put on my channel, I'm going to attempt to answer. So, we start with a message from Alan Butterworth. And he writes, I've just subscribed to your channel after reading that you bought an AKAI S6000 some time ago, I have to be honest. I had one back in the day and have been contemplating buying one again. I've just removed from my studio Presonus Studio Live Series 3 32 channel desk control surface and boxed it up, complete with an HP computer with 64 gig of RAM and a Studio One 4, Cubase 10, Reason 8.5, Dorco 3 installed on them. And in that place now stands a Soundcraft Spirit Auto 24, very nice, very rare via MIDI via VCA, and a Yamaha QY700. This was my setup back in 1998, and I seemed to get a lot more done then. My EMU 4 sampler with 128 voice, 128 meg of RAM got turned on yesterday for the first time in over 10 years. It worked in the morning, then the power supply blew in the evening. After checking it through, I find a thread on gear sluts. I'm buying a new PSU from Mauser, which I've just ordered. I'm currently trying to repair another SMPS switched mode power supply, so I haven't got time to sort the EMU one out as well. So I'm looking at maybe an S6000 because of the real estate you get with concerning outputs, i.e. 16, and also because of the IDE compatibility. Have you tried fitting an SSD or SD bay to your machine? I'll have a trawl through the rest of your videos when I get a moment. Cheers out. Quite a long one, that one. So this was in response to a rant I did some time ago, which I sort of titled up SMR, the samplers, and then I went through the various samplers that I have in the studio, which is an S750, an S50, an S6000, and a TX16W, all of which have been used for some purpose or other, but I have to be honest and said, and as I said to Al, I'm not really using the S6000, I'm not really using the samplers at the moment, purely because I'm just doing other stuff. So, thanks for the rundown on the setup. It sounds like you had an interesting home studio, and you know, I think moving to the Soundcraft, I've always been a Soundcraft fan. I owned one many years ago, and it was a jolly fine mixer, very smooth in terms of the way it operated. Unfortunately, I had to get rid of it because I just didn't have the space at that point in time to retain it. Mine was also a 32 channel model. So I know the whole feeling about workflow. Now, quite a few years ago now, I bought an M Audio master workstation, master keyboard, and I could not get on with it. It was bought and designed to run within the Pro Tools estate. But for me, I just could not get on with this keyboard. I was forever remapping the control surfaces on the keyboard to Pro Tools. It wouldn't synchronise itself. It was an utter nightmare. And in the end, I just thought, I cut my losses and said, you know what, somebody else can play with this because I'm just not feeling this one. Funny enough, it did come with an iLock, and it came with a Pro Tools license via the iLock. I kept the iLock and I kept the Pro Tools. I didn't. I sold on the keyboard to somebody else who can and get better use out of it. So I really understand that, and I've had a couple of other instances where I've bought a piece of equipment second hand or brand new, and for whatever reason I just can't work with it in my workflow. So in those instances, if I can't use it, I'll give it to somebody else. It's not like sort of the collection where everything in the collection I can use and I do use. In this instance, it had to go on. I have to be honest, I've never had an EMU sampler. Now, I watch videos of various individuals on YouTube, one of whom is a chap by the name of Vesper Craft up in the Nordics, and he has an EMU sampler which he uses all the time, and I can see that. And he also uses it all the time for making sort of his 80s genre pop records. So I've always been tempted, but I've never quite got around to purchasing one. So there you go. Maybe one day when the dust settles a bit on what's going on personally, I might think about it. in terms of power supplies blowing up when you've had them in storage for a period of time, one of the biggest things I found with power boards is they collect dust. So one of the things I always do before I switch this sort of stuff on is I tend to open them up and give them a bit of a hoover. Anti-static all the way, of course, just to get the dust, the surface dust off the board, just in case that's sort of, you know, because dust you wouldn't think about it, but if you've got enough voltage there and you've got dust between terminals, it will create a circuit, and that circuit can create problems. Also, the other side of it, of course, is the fact that you switch it on and the capacitors are leaked, and therefore they're not doing what their job, and that then tends to let the power board go bang as well. So, it's just one of those things. When I buy a piece of equipment now, I tend to go into the power board and I tend to give it a jolly good clean, and I look at the capacitors, and if the capacitors look like they're in any sort of bad shape or form, then, you know, pound to a penny, what I'll do is I'll log on to Mouser or RX Electronics or one of the other electronic supply houses, and I will buy brand new ones and swap them out. So that's kind of what I do. So, and I suspect that's probably what's caused your EMU board to go bang, one of those two. Going on to the S6000, now the S6000 is an absolutely mighty beast. Probably still is one of the best samples. I mean, when I was growing up, everyone was on the S1000, S3000. All the AKAIs of the time would have an S1000, S3000, and sort of it's all moved on a bit, and the S6000 came out, and it had a lot of upgrade capability. Now, where I think the S6000 won over the other two was, A, you had a detachable control unit, so you can take the control unit off the front and stick it on the bench where you're working, which is brilliant from a workflow perspective. And it's probably what set it up above the S5000, which was the sort of kind of system machine, if you like. In that the S5000 didn't have that capability, or I don't think it had that capability. But the 6000 had the removable top, and that really sold the 6000 to me. Also, it's got up to 16 individual outputs on it, which can be independently triggered, so you can have effectively 16 samples being triggered onto each output, which ultimately makes that very usable in a studio environment, especially if you're doing lots of sample work. But that's what really sold the 6000. And the other thing about the 6000 is, whereas on the earlier samplers, if you wanted to connect other pieces of equipment in, you were effectively putting the other pieces of equipment into the plugs in the back and then putting them on top, if you like. So if you had a rack mount, you were putting a shelf in to put the disk drive and the CD-ROM in and stuff like that. Whereas the S6000, because it's quite a big chassis, there's actually room inside to actually put stuff in it. Although Al has come back to me and said he's been looking at the SSD option, and he thinks he's going to put some sort of SCSI SD card scenario into the S6000, which I'm really interested in, because I probably will do the same at some point when I've got some time. But there is actually space. The space inside only allows you to have one internal SCSI application. Now, I know I've got CD-ROM in mine, so I suspect that is my SCSI connector, is the CD-ROM that's in mine, because I'm pretty sure that a hard drive that's in mine is IDE, but I'm not sure. I haven't looked inside mine for a long time, so at some point I probably will pull it out of the rack and have a good old nose around inside it again, just to remind myself what is actually in there. Anyway, Al, let me keep in touch, put comments on the channel, let me know how you get on with your upgrades, because it might be something that's worth discussing with other people on the channel who want to do the same thing. Had to pause because the maintenance man was just sweeping around me. Next one. From Gary Robertson, a frequent commenter on the channel. So hi Gary, how's it going? Interestingly enough, I've been recently trying to buy a second MX-1 for the studio in the UK. It's been tricky. Interesting. Retailers are telling me they have them on back order, but they can only get one every few months. With the boutique range still going strong and consumed, the lack of MX-1 units means that Roland are planning a release of a better unit, maybe an MX-2. There are plenty of them for sale on eBay, but most of them are now beyond the retail price. Supply and demand, I suppose. Gary, this is a very interesting, because obviously I believe there is more releases from Roland to come this year. I don't think they're done. I think the Not Quite 909 Day stuff I did is just the first wave of stuff, and I think there will be another wave of stuff. Now, whether it's this side of Christmas or not, I'm not sure. I think this was the Christmas gigging gambit. You know, the new synthesizers for bands. So you know, your band member can go and buy it now, and he's already set up for the sort of the Christmas gigging performance engagement market. So whether it's now or whether it's after Christmas, not sure. But I believe there is more to come. I just sort of, and I don't know. And nobody from Roland has told me, so you know, don't take this as gospel. But it just feels like there's more bits ready to come. And I agree with you, the whole sort of Groove Station stuff, Groovebox stuff that's come out recently, and the boutique range still going strong. I do think that there is going to be another MX style mixer in this market, because I think the current one, and you know my opinion, falls woefully short in terms of supporting boutiques and ARIA equipment and other Roland synthesizers, purely in the way that it's been set up. Now, if I was to lay money on it, what I would expect there to be would be an MX-2 that will support the Phantom, the Jupiter range, and all the recent keyboards of the last few years. And I suspect that's what they're going to do, is bring out something to support all those into one mixer package. So if you're a Roland user, you basically can have everything going into your mixer USB, a link straight down to your computer and your DAW, computer playback into the mixer, and then one set of leads going off to the house. Now, whether they're actually clever enough and put balanced outputs on the back of the MX-1 to go off to the house mixer, that would be really interesting. It's something they should do, actually, because I think the MX-1 has more applications for itself going forward. But it's very interesting that you point out that they are in short supply, which would indicate that Roland are ceasing production of the MX-1 and possibly in favour of something else. Now, carrying on from the last one, this one's also from Gary, and I thought I'd do both at the same time, because they were both about the same video, which was the Not Quite 909 Day part 1 or part 2 video, actually. And Gary was speaking of the MC303, which is what kind of the groove boxes are all based off of. He made this tune back in 1999, where the drums were from Amiga Amiga 500, and the sounds are from a Roland JX3P, but everything else was on the MC303. So I tell you what, I'm happy to support this. So below this video will be a link to his video to go and watch him. And the great, as I said to him, I love the bit at the end of the video where he threw the 12-inch away off the decks, reveals himself, and then walks off and pulls the banner down. It's pretty brilliant. It reminds me of back in First Leisure days, when First Leisure was a club operator in the UK. There was a guy, and I think the guy's name was Ian Fisk, who used to get completely trolleyed when he was DJing, and how he got away with it I'll never ever know, because I saw DJs get sacked for less. And he used to basically pick the 12-inch off the platter in front of the A&R guy who'd just given it to him, march down the microphone, "What is this?" add word, and sling the record into the dancing crowd. Oh well. Okay, the last one for this section. From Horace Live. You're a genius. You're generally one of the few who read the manual and know the stuff. Thank you for your videos, lifesaver. This is in response to an MX-1 video about the SMR about the MX-1 and the ethical conundrum about copying discs. Well, all I can say is thank you for the words of praise. I'm not a genius, I can assure you of that. If I was, I wouldn't be working for a living, I'd be having other people work for me. But that's as may be. There are times, of course, when I do get it wrong, and I'm open to people on the channel to tell me when I've got it wrong, so I can correct and put correction comments on so that people can actually see that I got it wrong and this is the correct course of action. But other than that, you know, if there's stuff you want to see, put a comment on the channel and I'll see what I can do. Remember, hit that like button if you like what you saw. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified about more rants, more mailbag, more questions and answers, and more videos about this sort of stuff when it's loaded to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.